Out of every animal on Earth, the chimp that shares almost all of our DNA, the dog that would do nearly anything for us, the whole grieving zoo of creatures that mourn and miss and mope, exactly one leaks salt water because it is sad. It's the human. Nothing else cries. And the human face does it in the most expensive way imaginable. It blurs your vision right when you might need to run, it wrecks your voice, it reddens everything and announces to the entire room that you are losing. By every rule evolution usually plays by, a system this useless and this loud should have been deleted a million years ago. It wasn't. And the best part, the part that should bother people more than it does, is that science still cannot say why it's there. There is a calmer kind of crying that every animal does, and it's pure maintenance. Cut an onion, catch dust, take an eyelash to the eye, and a gland in the corner floods the lens to wash the junk off. Lizards do it, cows do it. It's the windshield wiper of the animal kingdom, and it's older than legs. That one's solved. That one's plumbing. This is the other kind, the kind that shows up when nothing touched the eye at all. When the bad phone call lands, or the song hits, or the dog finally stops at the vet. The trigger isn't dust, it's a feeling. So the question on the table is the strangest one a human face can raise. Why does feeling something make water come out of a person's head? And why is the human the only thing alive that does it, when no one can tell you why? Those two kinds of crying aren't a strong version and a weak version of one thing. They're two different machines wearing the same costume. The first is the wiper, and all it does is janitorial. An onion releases a gas that turns to mild acid on the wet surface of the eye. The eye panics, the gland dumps fluid to dilute it, the acid washes out the corner. Cold wind, a stray eyelash, a poke, same reflex, no soul involved. A fly does this, the fly is not moved. The second tap is the one that doesn't make sense. Same gland, same salt water, but the trigger isn't on the eyeball. It's somewhere behind it, in the part of the brain that processes a funeral. Scientists actually split them by name: reflex tears for the onion, emotional tears, sometimes called psychic tears, for the funeral. And the strange thing is they may not even be the same liquid. A biochemist named William Frey spent the early 80s collecting both: onion tears from one group, grief tears from another, which is a real job somebody volunteered to do, and reported the emotional batch ran about a fifth thicker with protein, laced with stress hormones, and a built-in painkiller chemically close to morphine. Fair warning, nobody has managed to repeat that result in 40 years, so file it under intriguing, unconfirmed. But sit with the claim anyway. It says the sad tears and the onion tears are different recipes, that the body keeps a separate premium blend on hand specifically for despair. Most organs can't tell a good day from a bad one. The tear glands apparently filed the paperwork. So, if the sad tears are special equipment, what is the equipment for? Here's where the obvious answer is wrong. The obvious answer is overflow, pressure building up, the body venting like a kettle, a private little release with no audience required. But look at where it happens. It happens on the face, the most public real estate a person owns. If crying were just internal plumbing, it could drain quietly down the throat and nobody would ever know. Instead, it runs down the front of the head, pools in the eyes, reddens everything, ruins the voice. Every visible system firing at once, as if the body's top priority isn't to feel better, but to be seen. That's the reframe. A crying face isn't a malfunction, it's a billboard, and a very specific one, because it works on people who don't share a language and have never met. Show a stranger a photo of a face, then the same face with tears added, and they read the wet one as more in need, more honest, more deserving of help, before they've worked out a single thing about what's wrong. Researchers ran exactly that test across 41 countries, different languages, different cultures, every continent, and it held up basically everywhere. The tears measurably raised people's intention to step in and help. The water was doing the talking in a language nobody had to learn. And the genius is the cost. There's a theory that tears are an honest signal precisely because they're a terrible idea. They blur the vision, which means a crying person can't fight or run well. They've disarmed themselves in public. A smile takes a tenth of a second to fake. Tears mostly can't be summoned on command, and they leave you defenseless the whole time they're out. So the message lands as true. I am not a threat, and I cannot handle this alone. It's the one expression believed because it's stupid to send. Crying is the body filing an unforgeable statement of surrender, and the surrender is the whole point. But a signal aimed only outward leaves something out. Half the time, a person cries alone, in a car, windows up, broadcasting to nobody. So what's it doing then? Two things at once, it turns out, and here the kettle idea sneaks back in with a twist. Crying does seem to settle the crier down. Heart rate climbs during the build-up and then drops afterward, the body talking itself off the ledge. If Frey was even half right about those stress hormones in the tears, part of the job might be literally pouring the chemistry of a bad day out through the eyes. Nobody knows that for sure, but the calm is real enough that most people have felt it. The strange, scrubbed out quiet on the far side of a good cry. So crying wears two hats. Outward, it's a flare gun, come help. Inward, it's a pressure valve, resetting, give me a minute. It can fire both in the same 30 seconds, which is suspiciously efficient for something we file under falling apart. It isn't a breakdown. It's a two-channel distress broadcast. One frequency for the room, one for the self. And the human runs it from before it can speak, literally before it can speak. A newborn screams from day one, but for the first few weeks the screaming is bone dry. The tear glands aren't online yet, so the loudest thing in the maternity ward comes with no water. The tears phase in around the first month or two, right as the baby starts needing to win over a specific exhausted adult at 3 in the morning. Evolution didn't bolt tears onto language, it bolted them onto helplessness, and then never unbolted them. The infant emergency button stays wired in for life. It just gets quieter and learns to wait for the right song. Here's where it gets genuinely uncomfortable, in a fun way. Science can list what crying does: the signal, the calm, the help it pulls in. What nobody can agree on is why it picked the eyes. None of the usual stories quite close. The signal theory is strong, but it doesn't explain why the signal had to be salty liquid leaking from a face instead of a sound or a smell, which plenty of animals manage fine without ever crying. The honest handicap idea is elegant, but it's a theory, not a verdict. You can't run the experiment of evolving a second species to check. And the soothing idea has Frey's exact problem. Easy to feel, very hard to prove. So there are several decent explanations, all partly right, none of them crowned. The most reliable thing a human face does, the gesture every person on the planet recognizes on sight, the one they performed in the delivery room before they had a name, is officially an open question, which is a strange place to leave it. Most mysteries handed to science are far away. The bottom of the ocean, the inside of a star, the start of the universe. This one sits 2 inches below the forehead. It has happened to everyone watching a few hundred times, and the experts studying it have to admit they are mostly guessing. Every other animal on the planet stares at grief dry-eyed and gets on with the day. The human answers sadness by quietly flooding its own face, and the best minds we have can tell you precisely what that accomplishes, and not one of them can tell you why it's there. The most human thing a person does is the one we understand the least.